Alright, for this drawing I did, it didn't come out the way I had it envisioned, and I honestly think it's kind of bad in the end, but I did learn a good amount on what I would change next time to make it better, so I think I might redraw this picture later in the future and make it better. Basically, the idea of this picture is I wanted to draw a guy flying towards the camera at like super speed, basically, so he's in space, so the stars are like flying by him, and you can see all the reflection of the stars on his space helmet. That was the idea, and that's what I tried to draw. I think the sketch turned out good. That was pretty easy. And then where it started getting a little bad was when I started to outline the lines with ink. Trying to get a clean arc for the helmet was a little hard. So the lines are a little wobbly on there. To fix that, I don't know if that's something I need to try to draw slower or faster, but in general, it's just something I need to practice drawing more, doing arc lines and making them smoother. And then onto the suit. I was trying to do the suit with no screen tones. I was trying to do a black suit with using no screen tones because I don't have them with me right now. I think it turned out alright, although I'm trying to figure out a way I can make a black suit have a little more detail and still be seen as a black suit. So I'm figuring that out. So that part was alright, but where it started getting bad was when I made everything else, all the other white parts, black because it's space, and then I tried to do streaks of white as streaks of white lines for the stars that he's flying by. And the hard part there was okay, first of all, not all my lines were directly in the center. They were really like off axis, and that was just kind of because I already made a couple mistakes, so I wasn't really feeling like spending that much time making those lines perfect. I was just trying to get an idea down. So that mistake could be fixed just by spending more time focusing on where the lines are pointing. The second I guess the second thing I want to fix with the stars is I need to figure out a way to make thinner white lines because the brush I use that I dip in the white ink and then put it on is too thick. I guess I could buy a thinner brush, but even then it doesn't get as thin as I want it to, because I want it to be like about as thin as it would be if I dipped the nib in the ink and then used that, but for some reason the white ink doesn't flow like the black ink, so it doesn't work with my nibs. Like the white ink doesn't flow to the tip, so it never comes out as a line. It never gets drawn. That's why I have to use the brush instead of a nib. So I'm trying to figure out a better way to use white ink that doesn't need me to make such thick lines. And when I can figure that out, I think I'm going to try redrawing this, because I'm pretty sure I can make it look a lot better now knowing some stuff. And then the reflections in the helmet, that was pretty easy. It's just kind of drawing streaks that curve along the helmet to show where the stars are. Overall, I think the main mistake is it doesn't really feel like he's flying at the camera. It just kind of feels like he's there. There's not as much motion as I wanted it to feel. I think that's because of how the stars were drawn, and I think it's a little bit because of how the body was drawn. It's a little wide. I think if I make the head bigger and shrink the body down, it kind of feels more like he's jumping at the camera rather than just like sitting there being looked at. And then obviously, as I mentioned before a million times, the stars could have been better. That's about all I can think of for this drawing right now. Overall, wasn't really happy with the result, but I was happy with the idea, and I have some brainstorming to do to figure out how to improve the flow of white ink onto the paper. Maybe there's a special white ink I'm supposed to buy that works better with nib pens, but I don't know. I'll look into that. That's about it though for this video, so boom.